It's like, you know, on like Red Letter Media where they have the nerd crew, it's like nerd crew guys doing these shitty theories based on the trailer where it's like this one guy's like, my favorite was this one video I watched. This guy's like, Rey is very clearly Emperor Palpatine's daughter. My evidence for this, which is irrefutable, is that the lightsaber style she uses in The Force Awakens is very similar to the way that Palpatine fights with his lightsaber in Revenge of the Sith. Which I love as a concept because it's like the way you fight with a lightsaber genetically passed on or something.
Well, what I'm really worried about is that there's like plot that is in Battlefront 2 or something, or like I don't know, you know.
There's
like,
no way
that they're gonna do something like, well, you would know what's going on here if you had played Battlefront 2.
No way.
You'll know what happened within the years between Return of the Jedi and.
That's not possible.
That's impossible.
I've heard there's stuff in the game that's canon.
That can't be canon.
But it's probably like
the battle.
It's probably like I think the Darth Vader comics are canon and they're awesome, but like it's not like you're not gonna know what's going on. Yeah, dude.
They're actually really good.
Really?
Yeah. I read through the whole. I haven't been reading the most current one, but I read through one that came out last year. It was awesome.
Really?
It's only like 25 issues.
It's between A New Hope and Empire, right?
Really?
Yeah, it's great. It's like
right when the Death Star blows up and the Emperor's pissed at him.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the stuff where he's having to deal with the guy with the weird like Caesar cut that like?
Yes. That guy's like kind of his boss.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the guy who like is like one of the random like guys in the meeting.
The dude who's like, yeah, you sorceress ways don't frighten us.
No, it's not him. It's the dude that's all like the guy that's we are vulnerable. Yeah, that guy. He kind of talks like Bob Hoskins, but he's not Bob Hoskins.
Fucking Bob Hoskins.
It always goes back to Bob Hoskins. Which, if you know, I got to see the guy who voices Dr. Venture at Dragon Con, and he mentioned that, you know, to do a good David Bowie impersonation, you just kind of smooth out Bob Hoskins. Like, you end up sounding like David Bowie.
Yeah. There's some characters in it that are cool that I guess y'all never seen a movie. Although I would watch a standalone movie of the characters in the Darth Vader comics.
Yeah,
like Dr. Aphra, I'd watch a movie. I'd watch a movie with there's this dude who he comes along to be like, it's like the guy that like becomes Vader's supervisor. He sends these dudes out with Vader to like watch him and keep tabs on him. There's this one guy that's like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's this like super capable like Empire investigator.
I've always heard.
I'd watch a standalone movie with him.
I heard they did a good book about Grand Moff Tarkin that I heard's like pretty good.
No, not Grand Moff Tarkin. Okay, I was thinking of Grand Moff Tarkin.
And it like goes into like the weird decadent court of the Emperor and how like really the Emperor, you know, once he becomes the Emperor really doesn't do anything with the Empire other than just like sit around like meditating on how evil he is, and then like, you know, he only like becomes active when, you know, he needs something.
I guess comic of the whole Timothy Zahn series. Empire, George Cabal.
Oh, I'd read that. I never have had time to go and read those books.
I've heard Admiral Thrawn has become canon again. Like they've already been using him kind of on like whatever that show is. Is it Rebels? Yeah. And I mean, I think Thrawn would have been cool to show up in these movies, you know, if they could figure out a way to do a blue guy right. And I don't know.
They did blue guys in Guardians.
That's true.
Well, yeah, well, no, like have what's his name?
Booker.
Not like that. You know, I bet Thrawn could be played very well by the gentleman playing Thanos, who's my like name totally escapes me right now. Yeah, Brolin. I think Brolin could play Admiral Thrawn pretty well.
Hey.
But then you get into the whole
Josh Brolin.
Luke,
Josh Brolin.
Luke and Mara Jade, man. All the cosplay.
I'm trying to think of some of the other theories that a lot of them are pretty like. Supreme Leader Snoke is Darth Vader's father.
I'm pretty excited about Rian Johnson's movie coming out.
Just the last dragon. Yeah.
What?
He's doing a whole trilogy separate from everything we've seen already. Like,
well, I mean, what else has this guy made? I don't know.
Looper.
Okay. I didn't see those. I need to check them out.
Looper's awesome. Brick is pretty good.
Looper could be in the Criterion Collection, I think.
Yeah.
It's like really original. It's a really handcrafted movie.
Is that the kind of time travel movie or whatever with Bruce? Is Bruce Willis in that?
Yeah. Okay. Joseph Gordon.
All right, I need to check that out.
And Jeff, what the fuck's his name? Not Jeff Bridges. Who's the guy from the Newsroom in Dumb and Dumber?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. He plays the bad guy. I'm like, wow, fucking Jeff Daniels as a villain.
That's like what's his name playing the bad guy in Drive.
Albert Brooks.
Al Brooks, yeah.
Yeah, dude, he was awesome in that.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's awesome.
Great.
Kills Bryan Cranston, man.
Kills the shit out of Bryan Cranston.
How do you kill Bryan Cranston?
Yeah. I remember I really like that death scene too because he kills him, but he's like nice about it because he's like, shh, it's okay, it's okay,
it's over, it's done,
it's gonna be over soon. Yeah,
I just go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like,
I loved the villains in that movie. I liked him, and I liked Ron Perlman's kind of like he's like propelled by his insecurity or something.
That was a good one. I need to rewatch it because that was a movie I really enjoyed watching, but I only got to see once. I need to rewatch it.
I'd watch it again. Like kind of ruined some of the scenes with Ryan Gosling for me because there's these scenes where he's like sitting on the couch and like Gary was like, he's like fucking Forrest Gump, and like every scene where he's sitting down, I was like, yeah, he does kind of sit like Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Who's Gary?
He's a friend of mine. I was hoping to get him on the podcast sometime.
Sure.
Me and him used to do movie day every Saturday. We watched some pretty good and pretty bad trash.
Yeah, he got us to watch Josh Brolin's dad's movie with the evil car.
The Car.
Yeah,
that movie was awesome. I think I had the DVD somewhere around here he gave me. God, The Car was the shit.
I never saw that.
It's hilarious.
His mustache is freaking epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's discuss
jump up into this.
White people problems. The movie.
Yeah, got to introduce ourselves. It's Film Frauds, discussing the most important movies of our time, trying to analyze them and learn about film and the cinematic arts with three goofballs with very little film cred. I'm Jason. Got Chad.
Hey.
And Jacob.
Yeah, I'm here.
And we're here talking about, I guess it's been dubbed, White People Problems, the movie. 1995 Safe. Directed by Todd Haynes. And starring Julianne Moore, who was, I think this is her first main starring role. She was fresh off of some acclaimed movies like Shortcuts. Did you guys ever see that?
I have not.
Yeah.
That's in the Criterion, so I might try to watch that. Robert Altman's Shortcuts.
Yeah.
It's got an insane cast. But it's been so long since I've seen it, I can't remember most of the people in it other than I do remember Julianne Moore. And it's also got the epic drunk team-up of Lily Tomlin and Tom Waits.
Whoa.
But it's got like a ton of people.
All I know about it is she walks around for like 10 minutes with her giant red fire bush hanging out the whole time.
That's why I remember.
Oh, wait.
That's all I know about it.
Yeah, Cloyd used to talk about. Yeah, all right, okay, yeah, all right. I've heard
it was
of
good.
this
It's just I don't remember it well because it's been years since I've seen it, but it's cool.
I thought it's Robert Altman. I thought it was not Jim Jarmusch. Who's the other guy? Soderbergh. But yeah, it's Robert
Altman. Julianne Moore, I didn't know, made her cinematic debut in Tales from the Dark Side as Mummy Victim.
The movie or the TV show?
I think the movie.
Oh, cool.
She was Mummy Victim, so we can go back and watch that.
Is that the movie with Debbie Harry in it?
I don't remember.
I think one of the first times I remember seeing her was probably like Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
That's when she's like, oh, that's Julianne Moore, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this one came out in 95, and I think this is her first main starring role, then directed by Todd Haynes, who, I gotta admit, I haven't seen a lot of Todd Haynes' movies. He has a movie that's out right now that has some acclaim, Wonderstruck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I meant to see that before recording so I could like have it in my mind, like compare like old Todd Haynes with current Todd Haynes, but I didn't have time.
Right.
I don't know anything by him. I kept mistaking him for Todd Solondz. He did that movie Happiness. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
I wish
That movie is deeply uncomfortable.
Oh, man.
the ending, like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it starts
Yeah.
off so it starts off so strong with, like, you're shit and I'm champagne,
Yeah.
from John Lovitz. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
That movie's actually got a sequel that's on the Criterion Collection. I was
Really?
kind of disappointed that Happiness was not on the Criterion Collection because I didn't know if you guys had seen it. But the sequel is, which is supposed to be better. It's higher
Really?
rated.
I didn't know there was a sequel.
It's the same three sisters, but different actors playing them. It's
What's
like
the sequel called?
I forget. We can look it up.
Yeah. God, but that means I have to watch Happiness again.
I gotta
Yeah.
say, I laughed my ass off when the guy walks in the park with a machine gun and is mowing people down. And it's like, what a day for a
Yeah.
daydream. With some happy, song. It just made me laugh my ass off. And I was like, why am I laughing at genocide?
Oh, man. Yeah, so...
So back to Safe.
Yeah.
Anyway, back
So-
to
so-
Todd Haynes, the
Todd
actual
Haynes.
director of this movie.
Yeah. Todd Haynes, the real director. Apparently he got his start. I was looking at an article where he directed this controversial short film about the last days of Karen Carpenter, where all the characters are portrayed by Barbie dolls. And they got sued by the Carpenter family.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
But
Anyway,
Anyway,
as skinny as Julianne Moore is in this movie, it's like I actually did start thinking about this made-for-TV movie about Karen Carpenter while I was watching this. Just how skinny and unhealthy Julianne Moore looks in this movie.
Yeah. She did a great job in this movie.
Oh, she was awesome. So this movie takes place... I guess just diving into the
Sure.
overall story of the movie. It takes place in the late 80s in California. It tells the story of Julianne Moore, who's a somewhat, unremarkable, I don't know if that's the right word, homemaker, housewife. She doesn't have much individuality, I guess, and she doesn't do much, and it sort of follows her descent into getting this sort of vague environmental allergy, chemical sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I guess kind of starting off with some of those scenes, she starts off kind of already sick, right? Because she's coming home at night with her husband, and I remember they put in where she's sneezing in the garage.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
there's just her character, it's almost extraordinary in her ordinariness. She's so white bread, which the character's name is Carol White.
Carol, yeah.
And
Carol
she
White.
drinks a lot of milk.
I didn't notice that.
And
She's a bit of a milkaholic.
Did not know. I noticed the milkaholic.
This is a character who, and I need to rewatch it again to be certain, but I honestly don't think they name her until she's at the doctor's office 20 or 30 minutes into the film.
It could be. I don't remember. But it's not really it never comes up. But you get a lot of stuff in that first scene because you get her coming home. I remember just because I kind of knew there was going to be this whole thing with her having allergies. I remember making a mental note that she gets out of the car and she sneezes and she comments on how cold it is, and then she goes inside and then you have this super duper passionless sex scene with her husband.
Yeah.
Probably the most awkward, uncomfortable sex scene I've ever seen. She's
Yeah.
Where she's in this gigantic, cold, clean house.
Yeah.
With, everything's in its place. Everything are these weird, pale pastel colors.
Yep. Nothing striking.
Right. Which she almost blends into.
Yeah. I remember I wrote down she just lives in, it's almost like she lives in a sterile environment.
She does, and I mean, there's an early scene where she's clean, kind of watering and tending some flowers and wearing what look like dish gloves while she does it, so she doesn't get dirty.
Yeah.
And she repeatedly goes back to the flowers, which I sort of got in my head as, her character is a flower. Her character is just part of the ornamentation of this giant house with this wealthy husband that she really doesn't do anything other than sit in this giant house.
Even the flowers, I think she's out there fiddling with them.
Yeah, I like how that scene was shot. It starts out close in on her, and she's doing whatever with the flowers and bushes, and all of a sudden bam, and like snaps, like cuts to out wide,
Yeah.
and you see like how tiny and diminished she is, like compared to this huge house, and landscape. And the husband's like, "Oh, I'll see you, honey," and he walks away. And like all of a sudden, you just realize like, "Oh, she's like insignificant or whatever."
Right.
Well, trying to think about the movie, I read a few reviews, and a lot of people like to talk about how this movie is filmed like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like she's filmed in these large interiors that do nothing but make you think about how fragile she is. It's not really, I don't know if I wouldn't call it a horror movie, but it definitely makes you uneasy for her.
It's kind of, I saw like a lot of Kubrick shots in there too, like very symmetric.
I thought about that.
Yeah,
I was thinking
like
about
hallways, like exactly same borders around the shots.
Yeah. I remember there's a scene where she's talking to her buddy. I mean, I was going to talk about it later, but just going through the scenes. But there was a scene where she's talking to a friend of hers about her brother had died, I think. And there's something where it's early on in the movie, and there's this weird shot where it's like the two of them at the table, and you can see how odd that. It almost looks like they're sitting in a freaking spaceship or something like that.
Yeah, and that was such a creepy shot, and they're just sitting there having coffee. But it's like,
there's a lot of, I thought one of the, the first like real sign of her getting stressed out about something or anything is when she comes walking through the pastel White House into the room and finds that the delivery men have delivered dark colored couches. And
the delivery men, including a star-creating performance of "Mover" by badass Dean Norris.
I don't know that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I looked this movie up before, I don't think there's a ton of like big name actors in it other than Julianne Moore, and so like when you look at it, it's like Julianne Moore. I'm having a brain fart on the name of the guy that played Peter, the kind of cult leader.
Oh, I forget.
But then the third guy you see is Dean Norris,
Mover.
And one thing I noticed was when she
Bryan Cranston, Shaker.
Yeah.
Mover and Shaker.
I wonder how many Criterion movies Dean Norris is in. That'd be a good podcast.
That would be good. Yeah, to find them all, where he's in the background.
We ought to just like, we're rebranding it now where it's like our new podcast is going to be, we're calling it Dean's List. And we're watching
God.
all the critically acclaimed Criterion films with cameos by Dean Norris.
3 episodes long.
What's Dean as janitor? Dean is SWAT member 1. Dean is SWAT team leader.
Yeah, he's in Terminator 2.
Yeah, SWAT team leader. He's
awesome.
always a SWAT guy.
Hair Club for Men president.
Yeah, Dean is sergeant who comes down on Steven Seagal.
Yep.
Did you notice she first had like a major like allergy reaction kind of around the time she's dealing with the couch incident, like when she has to go like,
I feel like that's like the inciting incident, the thing that's like, all right, something's wrong.
It's
like I can't deal with this, I need like absolute control of my environment here.
Exactly.
She has it's like she's dealing with the couch, she's driving home, she's listening to kind of like weird fundamentalist church talk radio, which is kind of odd. Like, it's like an interesting little character beat that doesn't ever get brought up. I guess just giving you a little, like...
I mean, you could argue that, like, what she gets into later is kind of like a religion. So you can show that she's religious. Or, like, seeks to a higher power or something. Like, she's not in control of her destiny or whatever. Yeah.
And you get the most intense driving and coughing through the parking deck scene.
Yeah, that was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
But it's funny, though. It's so stressful, but nothing's happening. She's just, like, kind of slowly driving 8 miles an hour trying to find a parking spot, like, while coughing.
Something in the beginning of the movie, too, that I think is kind of cool. Like, I was talking about the first scene where you start getting the idea of her getting sick, and then you get the idea of her having those sort of, like, I don't know, like, intimacy issues is sort of the way to describe it, like, connecting with other people. At the beginning, too, she has this aerobic scene where you get, like, the classic 80s, like, aerobics lady outfits. I almost feel like there should be some kind of, like, history into, like, who the hell, like, designed that look originally. But when she's in the locker room, you get some of that, too, where, like, there's, like, this distance between her and other people, because it's like she's got all her buddies that she goes to class with, and so you see her kind of off to the side. She's not really, like, engaging with them.
She's just listening the whole time, just kind of, like, waiting to jump in.
Yeah, but then they're talking a little bit. They're starting to get into the, I think, something that you see a lot in the movie, which is the sort of, like, upper middle class, like, self-help thing and fad
Oh yeah, like
treatment things
because
they're sitting around talking
about
another
addiction.
Oh, we're addicted to the 12 steps, and it's another addiction, and like you should do something else, and so you start getting that concept in, while also reinforcing her.
Yeah, and I like their comment. They're like, "Oh, Carol, you don't sweat at all."
Yeah,
and it's like, what are you, not human?
And they, she's distant at like every interaction she has with her friends, her husband's friends. She goes to what, is like a baby shower. And again, it really pushes home, one, she's separate from them, but also the group there, they start asking for drinks, and it's nothing normal until the very end where they finally say normal coffee. Like, who wants normal coffee? But really, it's like, who wants herbal tea? Diet Pepsi? Mineral water? Everything is just off a little bit, and she's off from them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like that. It kind of shows her like totally out of frequency with each other.
Yeah,
they're just not meshing at all. And
she's really like almost ignored by anyone when she's not of use to them, especially her husband. Her husband doesn't really seem to, be into whatever her problem is, other than how it's affecting like his interactions with like a client.
He's kind of like an interesting guy. Like, I don't really know what their relationship is supposed to be like before, like, because that's not her biological son,
no,
right?
It's not.
So
Ned just had one son?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that son, by the way. I love the scene where they're eating dinner and he's like reading out his book report about the gangs of LA.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, oh, he's like going on about all the guns and stuff like that. LA's the kingdom of the blah, blah, blah. And like, then she's like, does it have to be so gory? And he's like, that's how it is.
But doesn't that also like go back to like her whole deal of, it comes back to the name of the movie, Safe, that right now she's got this big giant house that she's like inside. And she's not really like out, she's kind of hiding herself away in this weird white pastel world.
Kind of makes you like why is she so withdrawn from it? Like, what happened to make her withdraw from it? Like, did she like it at first? Like, I wonder what the history was. Were they like a happy couple when they were married?
Yeah.
First married?
There's not only that, but they are safe in their gated community from the actual urban environment that the son's talking about. Because it's not like, when they start getting into the whole concept of her being allergic to all these chemicals in the urban world of the 20th century, she's not really living in the urban world. She's living in suburbia. She's not in like central LA or like, uptown New York or anything like that.
But yeah, her husband's kind of interesting because like I don't really get their relationship because he is like fairly supportive. Like, he shows up to her group therapy meetings with her. There's kind of, you get into this kind of weird, like, husband-wife dynamic where she kind of has him talk for her a lot. Like, I remember at the group meeting, she stands up and she's really timidly like, I'm Carol, and like, she can't really, like, instead of saying anything about herself, he has to stand up and be like, I'm here with her to learn more about her.
Did you notice?
He also shows up and he at least seems to try to be somewhat supportive of her when she's out at Rinwood, the retreat.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe it's his supportiveness is sort of like shallow because there's a lot, you can tell there's like shit that he sees that an honest person would like confront her about. Particularly at Rinwood, like, you get a lot of like these little shots where you can kind of tell he's like not that into it.
It's just kind of passionless, I guess you could say.
Yeah. But she's so unable to speak for herself that even when she tries to visit an actual psychiatrist, and she can't even talk about her problems. She doesn't,
She's so disconnected from herself as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, she starts like having more incidents. There's I'm trying to think. I think I think her first like physical symptoms start showing up when she goes to the hair salon, and she wants to try getting a perm as an impulse. And there's this great shot of like the camera kind of going over her curls, and you see the weird little thing like dribbling.
Like the chemicals on
chemical stuff on her hair.
Yeah,
and
she starts seeping right into her scalp.
Yeah.
And then she gets this weird nosebleed.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm sorry, do you have a tissue?
Yeah. And so that's when that first kind of starts. And then she ends up going to, she starts having problems too where she goes to like dinner with her husband, and I guess that guy's a client or something. He's telling the crude vibrator joke.
And she's so disconnected from that whole dinner. She's like not paying attention to any of the conversation.
So her symptoms start growing. I think when you start getting into this, you start seeing more of this kind of like new agey stuff coming in. Because I remember you start seeing like weird. There's stuff on like TV in the background about. Remember that weird infomercial about like a holistic approach called deep ecology.
Yeah, deep ecology, which is typically not looked on well by scientists because it sort of tries to think of things in a holistic fashion without use of the environment. Or it's considered a very anti-human kind of way of thinking about the environment, which goes back to a lot of the stuff in this movie seems to push home the idea that she's to blame for her problems.
Yeah. That's what I saw a lot. Is a lot of this is man-made. Like, you make it on yourself.
And, that seems to be the theme of it. But at the same time, this movie is kind of criticizing that whole idea by making, like, later the therapy group she joins, it looks very exploitative and cult-like, while at the same time very blaming on herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a weird... I'd like to get in that later. That's a weird chemistry at the end there. I'm still not sure what's going on there.
Well, do we want to go ahead and show how she gets there? Or?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of any like major plot points. It's really like the whole first hour and a half is just building up her like illness. Her incidents get worse and worse. Yeah. She starts having trouble breathing. I think we mentioned the birthday party. She's eating ice cream and sitting with... There's that creepy scene where she's sitting with the little girl on her lap.
Just starts hyperventilating and like freaking out.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
Do you think it was something with the child that she thought she was allergic to, or
I think it was because she was eating a cake.
Okay,
ice cream or something. Because she goes on another fad. She goes on the fruit diet, and then she's quickly off the fruit diet.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was going to point that out. Her lunch with her friend, like, go for it, have a fruit salad.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll do it
together.
Herbal tea.
It detoxes.
Yeah, I love it because immediately when she goes to the doctor, she's like, "Well, I'm a real milkaholic. Nothing else is different other than the fruit diet." And he's like, "Get off the fruit diet."
Yeah, saying the fruit. The fruit diet detoxes is a nice way of saying it makes you take a shit.
Yeah.
Did this make you think about like how a lot of people try to cut gluten out now, even though they don't actually have, like, was it celiac disease or Crohn's disease or anything?
Yeah.
But it helps with inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So does Advil. Anyway.
Yeah, so let's see. She goes to her seminar, I think we mentioned, with her husband, where they learn about safe spaces. She kind of starts meeting more people in the like environmental.
She definitely starts gravitating towards the new agey. How do I fix this like stuff? And you can start seeing where it's mirroring what's happening with her friends, or they're always talking about ways to fix. God knows what element.
Yep. So she goes to that. She kind of starts meeting more people. I think that's when they first mentioned the Wrenwood retreat too. Because the lady, one of the ladies is like...
Doesn't she see that flyer that's like, do you smell fumes?
Yeah.
And she's
Are
like
you
crying.
allergic to the 20th century?
Yeah. And I remember it's almost like you see her face and she's almost like, oh my God, this is it. My savior. This is what I've been looking for.
Do you notice this is when she's first really, like, people are, though, engaging with her?
Yeah. Sort of. I mean, still, in a lot of those scenes, she's always off on the side.
Yeah, she is.
Because a lot of them require her to share.
That was my question.
Sharing sessions.
She's at this cult. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. She's at this cult, and she's really happy there. So is it that bad for her? She's like flourishing.
I think that's one of the tricks of this movie.
Yeah.
Is that she's actually happy in what really is kind of an oppressive and exploitative environment.
Yeah.
But she actually seems to be happy, even though, she eventually decides to move into an igloo.
Yes.
More on that later as we try to get to that. But
the igloo era of the movie, yes.
The final chapter.
Igloo, the final chapter.
Yeah.
Chapter 5. Igloo.
But and she has her worst attack going to the laundromat again.
That's what sets her off.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I wish I paid more attention to this. I feel like she hears like a symptom and then she has that symptom like 5 minutes
chemicals
later.
And then she goes in and they're like it's like they're spraying like comical amounts of chemicals.
And I remember her hearing like a few minutes before, like, oh, you can get a seizure or you can get whatever. And she has a fucking seizure.
So I think now is as good a time as any. What do you think is wrong with her?
I think she's I think she hates her environment. I don't think she's allergic to it. I think she just hates her life, and she's bored, and she just her mind is digesting itself, and it's all psychosomatic illness that she needs to get out of that marriage, that house, and that environment.
Yeah. So like her first attack in the car in the parking deck, my girlfriend actually said, that looks like a panic attack.
That's the first thing I wrote.
That is a panic attack. And everything after that, it seems like an escalating series of psychosomatic situations involving panic.
Right.
I wonder if this movie came out before panic attacks were a known and well-known thing.
Yeah, I wish I had read more about it.
And if it shed light on it or something.
I got to spend the smallest amount of time reading about. I think the condition she has is something that's sort of, this is a fiction, maybe a more fictionalized version of something that people have described people having, and they're often recommended psychiatric treatment for it.
I used to have panic attacks back in the day when I was 20, and they really suck.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you could do about them.
Yeah. But, so I guess that's sort of, I would kind of echo that. I feel like she has a very empty experience. Her life is just for her it's nothing. She lives in basically a museum where she's just a fixture in there. She really controls nothing and does nothing all day. There's servants basically that
she gives
have to get her every book and get her her milk and
they're always painting the kitchen or redoing a part of the house and making
a stressful day is getting the couch delivery.
It should be teal, which is a horrible color for a couch, I might add.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, it's
teal?
That makes me think, because the happiest she ever seems to be in the movie is when she actually has to cook dinner at the compound.
Yeah. Because she actually has to she does something for herself, so.
That's what I was asking myself. I'm this compound, it's, a cult, but it's making her happy. Is this bad for her? I mean, it seems to be working for her. That was my, main question at the end. I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess we got to get into Rinwood, don't we?
Yeah, keep talking about this cult.
She's got her bad attack, and then she's at the hospital, and I think at the hospital is when she starts watching more Rinwood stuff on the TV, and she decides to take the plunge and fly out to Rinwood. So my first impression when she starts pulling up to Rinwood is, it looks like a real shithole. I remember the cab is pulling up and there's these crappy shacks and the lady's coming out yelling at her.
Yeah, the great intro, by the way. It's you leave here, get away.
Yeah, get the car. Yeah, don't try that car. Yeah.
So I kept wondering what that when I saw it, I went, "Is this the type of place where everybody eats nothing but rice and water?" Or something, where they got
it is,
because it's clean.
Yeah.
So she shows up. It looks awful at first. I feel like if I was her, I'd think I was walking into a trap and I'm going to get murdered.
Yeah, it was definitely Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th type shit.
And by this point too, I think we glazed over. She's she built a little mini safe room at her house, I think, and she's carrying around oxygen tanks. So. Now she's carrying her oxygen tank. She goes in. There is a nice, little community center that she goes in, so it doesn't look too bad once she gets inside. I think she meets...
And everyone's pretty nice, I guess.
She meets Claire, who's, I think, the director, and she kind of gets oriented a little bit. Mm-hmm. You see a good human connection shot, if I remember, because Claire comes up and gives her a hug, and she stands there with her arms by her side.
Yeah.
Uncomfortably.
Yep.
Which all of this is serious cult behavior, how they bring people in.
Yeah.
And Claire, I thought, was an interesting character because I've read up on a lot of stuff. She reminds me of how the Manson family or Jim Jones or a lot of those, you typically have a charismatic leader and then his number one follower is usually a very strong female character who, kind of really runs the show. And Claire seems to be the one who's actually running the show at this center while the leader kind of, just sort of
the figurehead.
He wanders into sessions and asks a lot of personal questions.
I was waiting for the hand on the leg at any time, hey, come back to my camp.
It was a weirdly sexless cult.
Yeah, I was expecting some kind of foreplay or foul play.
Something, yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
She's really happy there. We're oh, okay.
Instead, they're separating themselves out by sexes at their silent breakfasts and lunches, and later,
I feel like that's got to be part of the, I would say, kind of the fake healing process. Is they create this sort of half-assed monastic society, you know, where
they
we don't give into the cravings that cause us, you know, stress and problems.
And like the leader of the cult or whatever society,
Peter Dunning. I wrote down Peter Dunning, epic piece of shit. And
he has like an amazing house, like his mansion on a hill, and like he's got people cooking dinner for him every Sunday
he gets
night.
paid like crazy money.
He's got the people out there basically doing Dianetics. He's got them. Don't sue me, but
I remember
we'll put a bleep there.
There's a good scene where she shows up. She goes to her cabin. She goes to her first, like, they have these meetings that kind of remind me of, like, contemporary church services. And I remember that one's kind of funny, because Peter comes up, you get introduced to him, and I remember, like, I didn't write it down, but I think one of the characters introduces him by saying something weird, like, he's chemical sensitive and HIV positive, so he has a very deep perception or something. But that's not proven anywhere, so I think it's like total bullshit.
Yeah,
you never see him like show any symptoms of having any kind of problem.
I think that comes back to how this movie specifically says it takes place in 1987, when like the AIDS scare was first really going, and you had most people had no real understanding of what the disease was. In fact, I was just really hoping that he was at some point going to say that the chemicals gave him AIDS, or the chemicals made him gay, or something like that. You know, like something like that was going to happen.
Yeah, but I wrote down in my notes the rules, because I did think it was interesting how they establish all these rules. Where it does seem like, I don't think it's like a cult yet, but it's like you're encountering like the early part of what could become a cult, where it's like they have to have silent breakfast and lunch. They have to be moderate in dress. At meals, they have to separate men and women. So I remember there's like scenes where they're all sitting on opposite sides. Moderate sex. I can't remember if there were any other rules, but those are the ones I wrote.
I don't remember the rules.
Yeah. But Peter shows up. He gives a bunch of like... He starts spouting off a bunch of like vague stuff that doesn't really mean anything. And I remember... I don't know if you guys noticed this, but then this lady gets up and sings this song, and it's this like comically like vague new agey song where the chorus is, give yourself to love if love is what you're after. It's like...
Yeah. And, you know, they have this mantra they like to say, which is, we are one with the power that created us. We are safe, and all is well in the world. And, you know, it's just this whole thing of like, I wouldn't be sick if I could just love.
Right. But I like that first scene, because I think... This is where I stopped taking notes, so I feel like an idiot. But I remember in that scene, the camera kind of goes back to Julianne Moore a lot, and you see that she's sort of like not really into it. And I remember she goes back to her cabin, and she immediately like breaks down in tears, because you can tell at that point she's like,
"What did I
do?
Holy
shit! Like I came here for answers." You know, I thought this was going to be the place, and
doesn't that woman, what was her name, Claire?
Yeah, Claire, yeah.
She shows up and gives her a hug or something,
right? Claire is there to pull. I could tell it's almost like Claire knew what was up, and she shows up to like...
She's there immediately. And from that point on, if you notice, Carol doesn't get physically better. She actually gets a lot worse. Yeah. While at the same time constantly trying to pretend like she's getting better. Like she's sending messages home. She's, she's sending messages home talking about how great it is to be there. Well, at the same time, she's running away from the sound of cars because the exhaust is going to kill her. Yeah. Something that she was, she witnessed when she first arrived, and another patient was terrified of that.
But she's happy, though. Yeah. That's what I kept noticing. I'm like, man, she looks fucked up. But she's happy.
Yeah, see, I don't know if she's really happy. I guess that's where you gotta... I was gonna think about that because when I got into the last scene in the movie, but yeah, I guess we'll skip ahead.
Go right ahead.
Well, I kind of want to talk about some more stuff just in the place, like her. She starts interacting. She really starts buying into the message. I feel like right after Claire reassures her, and then she has an awkward cultish conversation, I feel like, where Peter shows up while she's sitting around watching. You get your introduction to Lester, who's the dude who wears the full bodysuit.
Isn't that supposed to be like one of the top 10 creepiest scenes ever or something.
That was why I picked the movie, was somebody put that on their, like, scariest scenes.
And I didn't...
And so I watched it and I was like, it's not scary. I mean, it's definitely, like, a weird-looking dude. But...
Yeah. That's what makes me weird, like, think, like, was I watching this movie wrong? Like, am I supposed to be scared right now? Like,
I wasn't really.
I wasn't at all.
But Lester was interesting, because I don't know what you're supposed to get at. I don't know if he's, like, the final phase of that kind of thinking is like...
He's like the extreme or something.
Like, he's such a prisoner that he just, like, he has to wear a full bodysuit. He doesn't come close to people.
He walks like a lizard man.
Yeah. Well, he's like an alien.
Basically. Well, Julianne Moore is getting more and more like that. She's turning into that.
That's true. But so maybe it's showing you, like, her final stages,
Yeah. And then Peter shows up, and I remember he has this kind of odd conversation where he's asking her how she's doing. And she kind of is talking about some concerns, like she doesn't feel as well in her cabin or something. And he's like, you got to talk to Claire about that. And then Claire was telling me he had some problems, though. So like, you start to already get that, like, Claire's getting reports from people and, like, getting back to him.
They're starting to steer her around.
Yeah, so then he gets her back on board.
And you can tell he's just, like, trying to, like, every time he, like, talks to them or has a meeting with a lot of people, like, he's always trying to...
He puts it on them.
He's trying to, and he's trying to demean the outer world a lot. He's trying to like isolate them, be like, "Oh, those people are bad."
Right. While at the same time, telling them they're the source of their own problems, basically to make an excuse for why one person dies on the compound.
Yeah.
Right,
Scientology.
Yeah, it's like, doesn't he say something like he couldn't give up his rage?
Yeah,
or something like that.
So it's his fault. It's his fault he had that.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember, like, that's where things start getting a little weird, too, is there's the scene in the, whatever, they have their, like, group meetings, and he's, like, starts going on this rant about, like, I stopped reading the newspaper. I stopped watching the news. Because the news is full of so much hate, and I needed to let all the love in.
Yeah, and he was trying to isolate them, saying, oh, don't listen to what's going on outside.
Right, yeah, just stay here, like... So that... I think that's when her husband and son show up, too.
Yeah.
Right? I can't remember if there's anything.
Yeah, I remember that. That's when they show up, and it was really passionless. It was like the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Isn't there a scene when she's walking with them, and they hear someone else crying in their cabin?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the wife of...
the wife of the person who died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember her son, like, goes up to approach it, and then they have to call him back.
And then they point out his giant mansion.
Yeah. Yeah, and her husband is like, that's the thing, it's like he sort of has like, it's like he's supportive, but it's like superficial, like, you know, like he'll show up, but like he won't really like comment on what's going on. I feel like that was a point where in his mind his gears are turning where he's like, this may not be good for her.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
but he didn't really say anything. He's just kind of like, oh, okay.
I can spend this money and I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw money at
She'll be over in this igloo.
Right,
I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he does seem to be like kind of totally cool with just leaving, right? Like when she leaves, I remember there's a really uncomfortable scene where he tries to give her a hug, and then she like shies away like his cologne, and he's like, "I'm not wearing any cologne."
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all in her head.
Oh, maybe it's your shirt then, or something. And then he's just kind of like, "All right, peace."
Did you get a feeling that Carol and Peter were kind of feeling her out at a point to see if it was mental or physical, and that they probably, if it was physical, they were going to probably try and get her to leave? Like, it's almost like they didn't want somebody else on their hands that was like physically ill, but once they started realizing it was mental, they were like, oh, okay, we can keep you around. Well, you know, it's like, I definitely got that vibe going on.
Oh, really?
I wonder if they...
That's an interesting idea. What made you remember?
There was something when they started talking to her about how she was continuing, like, they were like, but you seem to be in a downward spiral. And it seemed like for a minute there, I was like, she's concerned, but I have a feel, like, I just, for some reason, got this feeling. I was like, the reason she's concerned is they don't want another death on their hands. Yeah. They, you know...
I kind of got the impression that they just find ways to individually exploit these people. Like, they poke at them and see what's wrong with them and what are they susceptible to. And then, like, he comes by on a little walk with them and, like, very slyly, like, manipulates them so they're, like, crumble even more. And they just sit there and pay all this freaking money.
Yeah.
While they're talking about all their personal history on tapes and everything to each other so that they have...
It's kind of like a televangelist Taylor or something like that.
Yeah.
Testify.
Have you ever known anybody that was in one of those crazy I have one friend that I didn't know this, but we watched that movie Jesus Camp, and she was like, that was like my life for a number of years. And my friend Andrew, actually, I guess I know two people. I have an acquaintance too, and I found out he was apparently in like a cult as a kid. They lived in like somewhere in Indianapolis. They literally lived in like pretty much like a shopping complex that was like a defunct shopping complex that this church had bought, and everyone like stayed on the compound.
When did they like realize that it was bullshit?
Well, I think they lived there with their parents.
Or did they?
I'm not sure if the parents realized it's bullshit. I'd have to ask him again.
Oh,
I think that he left. Like he realized maybe it was bullshit when he sort of started entering, like maybe when he was like high school age,
yeah,
or something like that.
Okay, I'm always curious about that.
Yeah,
when people realize like, oh, everything I've learned my whole life is bullshit.
A lot of it's like, I guess, when people like they're confronted with information about the outside world that they can't get away from.
All these things I heard about this horrible place may not be true.
That's why I've heard like a lot of groups, that used to have lots of members, like say the Hare Krishnas and other people, more, or not necessarily them, but more exploitative groups. Because of the internet, they don't quite have as much of that. But I mean, still, some of that stuff still goes on, because then they teach you, if you read about this on the internet, you'll get sick. Yep. So don't Google search,
Yep, exactly.
And good scene, I think, sort of getting into more like, I guess kind of like manipulative behavior is then they have the group therapy scene after Greg and her son, I can't remember his name, left. Mm-hmm. She's there, and they're in the setting, and that's where like Peter really starts hitting people with the like, your sickness is your fault, where the whole thing is him asking people why they got sick. Mm-hmm. And I remember it's like the one guy, he says he was like, oh, I guess I got sick because I OD'd on drugs or something like that, and so then he like puts it on him for his drug problem. I can't even remember what there's like. It goes through like three people.
Well, the one woman,
but there's a one lady whose husband died, and you can tell she's like not into it anymore. Mm-hmm. And he really like lays the blame of her illness on her.
Well, I was going to go into, one of the people there, well, I'm sick because I was harmed as a young person. Yep. And I haven't forgiven.
And how screwed up is that? It's like, and he's promoting that where it's like, it sounds like she's describing somebody that abused her as a kid or a young adult. And she's sick because she doesn't have the love to like forgive her abuser, basically.
Yeah. So maybe this place really doesn't make you happy. Maybe it just manipulates the shit out of you.
Yeah, maybe. And that leads us to...
Carol starts stepping out. I remember she signs up for Share dinner or whatever it is.
Yeah, her little boyfriend or whatever, boyfriend.
Yeah, I feel like that guy's name has got to be Steve.
Steve looks exactly
the Rinwood Retreat Creeper. He's like, it's like he'd been watching her, because the second her pencil touches the paper, he's like, whoop.
You think he was a plant?
Huh?
You think he's a plant?
Who, Steve?
Maybe. Yeah. That Claire sent him over there to do that, to get her involved?
I don't think so.
Maybe. Okay. I don't know.
I think he's another guy there who's like, hasn't gotten laid in forever. And he's like, sees, hey, here's Carol, like, this shy lady. I can get in there and...
Dibs!
Time for old Steve's eater.
Steve's his garlic bread.
Yeah, is he the one... They have, like, their kind of weird dinner with the lasagna they make, which she actually seems happy and engaged.
Yeah.
Since she makes something, and they all dance to some really...
They're all dancing and having a great time.
I think it's her birthday, right? Because don't they break out?
It was creepy.
And then it's time to go in the igloo.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she goes back. Steve, whatever his name is, I'm going to say Steve. Steve clumsily is like, obviously Steve doesn't want to go home yet, but he gets at least he's not a complete dick, and he leaves.
Yep.
So then she goes in her igloo, and the movie ends with her staring at the mirror, trying to affirm to herself that she loves herself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's all bruised, and this light's all like
fluorescent light. Yeah. Really is not, makes it look even worse.
Yeah, and it's like dark and shaded, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So the movie almost makes you blame her for her own problems for not loving herself.
Well, I think what it is like, I think in the beginning of the movie, she should be happy, but she's like superficially happy because she's got all her friends, and she's got her nice house, and her husband, you'd think she has everything, but she has a pretty miserable, like, empty existence, really.
Yeah.
So then the whole journey of the movie takes her to this place where, again, it feels like she's happy on a certain level, but she's not. It's just like she's on like this other side where it's like she's supposed to be spiritually connected. Mm-hmm. She's kind of given up a lot of like the material life she had, but she's not improving physically. She's getting worse. Mm-hmm. I remember in the birthday, I think it's the dinner scene, you get the final, like, I wish I had taken notes on what she says, but it's like you get this final thing where she gets to like speak her mind, and she says like the most like weird, just like new age empty like word salad.
Yeah, just like gibberish, right?
So I don't feel like it's like she's not really like learning anything.
She's just repeating everything everyone has said.
She's just repeating stuff. So then in the final part of the movie, I don't think that she feels to herself like she's getting better. And so she's looking at herself desperately trying to convince herself.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's almost like praying.
That she has the self-love.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right, yeah.
It's like, I'm not improving. I'm going to keep working at working the like self-love thing. And it's actually pretty sad. It's like, until I can convince myself.
Yeah, it is pretty sad, isn't it? I thought it was happy, but it's not.
That's at least how I took it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One of the interpretations I read of this movie is that it's like kind of it's going back to the blame game, in that Todd Haynes really didn't like the way that a lot of people used to blame people for getting AIDS, that it's their own fault, and that, you know, people should think about it like that. And again, you know, going back, this movie takes place in '87. Peter, the leader, claims to have AIDS, but definitely doesn't look like he does. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, this whole idea that you're sick, or all of your problems are because you're like, you know, flawed.
Mm-hmm. There's something you have to fix in yourself. Yeah. What do you guys think was did anybody have any thoughts on an overall theme for this movie?
I think I just said about as close as I could get to it. But
I kind of said, I mean, like, I felt like all of our stress was man-made. Like, you make your own stress, you make your own hell, you know?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I didn't. So I guess it's interesting. I guess this is one where everyone kind of takes a little something different. I didn't pick much of a theme from this movie. I just saw it as more of an examination of kind of like self-help hysteria and building an identity around, almost like if you like people in the modern world who don't have, let's say they don't have much of an identity. Like Carol has no identity. Mm-hmm. I feel like as the movie progresses, she actually kind of builds her self-image around her suffering.
Yeah,
which sort of becomes like part of that too, which is part of that like the sort of like new agey self-help movement.
On that idea of no identity, you could also go into like, without an identity, she's just constantly, again, going to the title, trying to find a way to be safe. And in her process, her environments around her get smaller and smaller and smaller. At the beginning of the movie, she's in huge interiors where she's like tiny compared to everything around her.
Yep, a
very
huge
vulnerable.
shot, yeah.
And then gradually, like, the interior shots get smaller and smaller. Then eventually she's at the compound in the small cabins and whatnot, until finally she's in the igloo, and then eventually, who knows, maybe she's wearing the rubber suit.
She's going to be wearing the Lester suit at some point.
She will be Lester, yeah. So yeah, that's Lester. He got smaller and smaller. Now his house is that suit. I mean,
that's his safe space, is like the suit around him.
Yeah, the suffocating himself.
And he's never going to get around people.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie.
It's kind of freaky.
Yeah. Anybody have any last thoughts before we get into recommend?
The music in this movie, when it first started, I immediately thought of like Angelo Badalamenti, the guy did the music for Twin Peaks and a lot of David Lynch stuff. Like,
I could see
when it
that.
started off, it had that like synth sound, like Laura's theme.
Yeah, I really like that opening shot where it's just like the dashboard.
I like that too.
Yeah, and that music and the way things were shot, especially the California segments. I saw a lot of reviews. In fact, like Ebert said it, that it's filmed like a made-for-television disease of the week movie. Like you almost expect like the 1-800 environmental illness hotline to come up at the end of the movie.
Yep.
This is a movie where I tried to not read interpretations before we did the podcast. Now I'd like to read some because I feel like I can't really like express what I'm thinking about the movie.
Yeah, that was kind of why
it helped me.
I took a lot of notes, but I then like started reading things, and eventually at a point I went, I gotta stop this because now like it's almost like I don't have my own opinion, and that's going to be something interesting. Like as we continue to make these recordings, is how much like your exposure to somebody else's idea about the movie influences your own idea about the movie.
Yep. I try to read like little beginnings of the article just to kind of point me in a certain direction to think about.
I just, the thing that just jumped out at me, like without reading anything, was just the way the interior shrunk. How everything is shrinking in the quest for safety to make it smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah. So I guess we can go around the room. We always ask, this time we'll start with Chad, would you watch Safe again?
Probably not. I liked it, but it's just not a movie I was passionate about. Nothing that, I need to see again, I don't think.
What about you, Jacob? Would you watch Safe again?
I mean, if I was flipping channels and it was really, really late at night, I might put it on and fall asleep. It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. Well, actually, slow burn means there's an explosion at the end. There is no explosion.
I don't think it was boring, though.
It's a mood piece. It makes me think of, like, if you've ever been in a modern art museum and you've seen, like, a canvas with one little dot in the center of it or something. I mean, it was beautifully shot. Beautifully shot. I mean, provoked a lot of good conversation here, but definitely not something I'd really go for.
So, it's been a while since we recorded The Fantastic Planet, so it was like, I watched Safe, like, I want to say that night. So that was like over 2 weeks ago, I think.
Right.
So, if you'd have asked me after watching it then, I would have said no. But I watched a little bit of it before we recorded, and I was getting like pretty engrossed in it. I think I was picking stuff up that I didn't think about the first time. So now that I kind of started watching it again, I could see myself, like, if I owned it or something, like, I don't know if I'll ever be in the mood to be like, I'm going to go rent Safe. But if it was on Netflix or something, I could see myself watching it again. I would also recommend Safe to people. I think it's a pretty interesting movie. What about you? Would you?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I definitely would recommend it, especially if somebody wants to actually like have a film to really kind of think about something that's going to provoke conversation about some of these issues. And I don't know, like you've just convinced me. Maybe I do need to watch it again. I don't know.
I don't know. You got a pretty good handle on it. You're talking a lot of stuff I didn't think about the first time I watched it.
You've only seen it once?
I saw a bit of it when I got here. Jason had it on, so I watched a little bit more of it then.
Yeah, I'd probably recommend it to the right people.
Yeah.
Not everyone would like it, but yeah. I would.
Oh, all right. Cool. So, I guess we always play a game on these. We're not playing for who gets to pick the next movie, but just for
bragging rights.
Bragging rights, yeah. So we always have done 6 degrees. I thought maybe this time I'd do a little trivia question for you guys.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know. This might not be a very hard question.
Is this like, do we write down an answer and show you, or do like the first one to answer?
I think you can write down an answer,
and
then we'll compare who got it. I'm hoping you guys don't just know this off the top of your head.
Okay.
This isn't like a super obscure question. It's just, this movie is the first starring role for Julianne Moore. Julianne Moore's pretty awesome. She's got a lot of acclaim as an actress and has won an Academy Award. How many times has Julianne Moore been nominated for the Academy Award?
Oh.
Think about all the movies she's been in. Even if she could have been nominated for this.
I have a number that popped in my head as soon as you said that.
You know what? Let's just go for it, Chad. What's your number? I was going to say 4.
My number was 3.
Chad has said 3. Jacob has said 4. The magic number is 5 Academy Award nominations for Julianne Moore.
Wow.
She's been nominated for Boogie Nights.
That was one of mine.
She was nominated for End of an Affair.
Didn't know that one.
She was nominated for Far From Heaven, which I think was another Todd Haynes movie. I think she's made 4 movies with Todd Haynes. I think Julianne Moore's actually in this Wonderstruck movie.
Huh.
She was nominated for The Hours, and then she was nominated and won for Still Alice.
That's the one I knew. I knew that Boogie Nights, and I figured there was something else I wasn't thinking of.
Maybe I need to watch some more Julianne Moore movies.
Yeah,
right.
I think we ought to get together and watch to watch that movie. Remember that movie that came out? It must have been a real turd. Because it was I saw previews for it years before it came out, and it was this fantasy movie with Jeff Bridges.
Oh, Second Son or something?
Yeah, and Julianne Moore, I think, plays
Son?
the villain. I think she's a witch or something.
What?
So we can get together and watch that.
I've never heard of that.
That's to see a bad movie with great actors.
Oh, wow.
It was a bomb. It was a huge bomb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Poor Jeff Bridges, man. He made that, and he made R.I.P.D.
Oh, yeah.
With Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That poor man.
Yes.
I thought he would be a really good Mr. Wednesday on American Gods if they ever made a movie. I mean,
Jeff Bridges?
Yeah. I really like what McShane's doing, though, on the show, so...
You know what's weird that it struck me is this is a solid movie.
Yeah.
It was good. And I didn't even hear about this movie. And I'm pretty well, I know a lot of movies, I guess. If only thing by title and by who's in it or whatever. I never even heard of this movie.
This movie
I never had
definitely
either. Before reading that article,
mid-90s.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Wait, which movie?
I
Safe.
was saying I had not heard of Safe
Yeah.
before reading that article.
Did this movie really come off as a typical mid-90s kind of indie film?
Yeah.
Something about it just really was yep, this is what movies were like back then.
Yeah.
I remember there being a lot of movies with that sound and the way that the colors looked. And
It was really well made, though. I mean...
Not a lot of blue and orange like you see on everything now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right. I mean, I guess that's pretty much it until we have to pick a movie for next time.
Oh, yeah.
And that puts us on... I just picked. Chad picked before that, so now it's on Jacob.
Oh, yes. And the next film we're going to be watching is 1955's The Night of the Hunter, starring Robert Mitchum.
Huh.
Night of the Hunter, I have no idea what that is. Tell me all about it.
You said 1955, I immediately shook my head. It's got to be black and white.
It's about a itinerant preacher who comes to town with the words "hate and love" tattooed on his fingers and terrorizes a family.
Huh.
I've only seen the opening part of this movie one time, and I had to leave the room for some reason, and I've always wanted to go back to it. It's a thriller.
Night of the Hunter.
Yeah.
Robert Mitchum. What else is he?
He's in, isn't he in the original Cape Fear?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds like Cape Fear.
Yeah. It's, I think there's going to be some overlap on the themes and whatnot here.
Okay.
Has it got any other famous director or anything like that?
Who directed it?
It's directed by Charles Laughton.
Does not ring a bell. Sounds good, though.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely interested.
All right.
I guess before we sign off, does anyone have any... I don't have too much here. Does anyone have any cool recommendations? Anything you've seen lately that...
I can't recommend enough the show Black Mirror.
Oh, are there new episodes of that now?
There's a 4th season coming out. I don't know if you've seen all of season 3. You did?
I think.
Did you see the one with the internet and the guy and the people have to do all these things that are getting texted to him on a phone?
No. Okay, I gotta watch that one.
Oh, there's so many good episodes. Every time I try and space them out because they're like really good meals. You don't want to just stuff your face with filet mignon.
You feel miserable if you like binge watch.
Yeah,
Black Mirror all day.
So I like really space them out like a month apart or something. And like every time I watch, I'm like, man, that's a great fucking show. It's so well written and it's such great.
I have to check it out. I've never really watched it.
Oh,
it's good.
It's an anthology show, so like every episode is completely. It's like Twilight Zone. It's a new Twilight Zone where it has like little things where, and it's all about like the dark side of technology and like how it's just gonna like grow to like ruin our life. Yeah. Or in some cases, they're actually pretty happy. A couple of them are actually good stories, but really great show. I can't recommend it enough. For season 4 coming out next month, I think. Yeah. And there's one episode that looks like it's Star Trek themed. It looks pretty neat. Where they're like on a starship and a crew and all that.
There's a bunch of damn movies coming out soon that I kind of want to see. I want to see The Shape. I think it's The Shape of Water, the Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah. There's that Lady Bird. I think that's got to win the Oscar, right? I mean, everything is buzzing about that.
Yeah, Lady Bird looked good.
Yeah.
Now that we watch Safe, I would like to see Wonderstruck.
Yeah.
There was something else that was coming out. It's going to drive me nuts. I can't remember.
There's a whole lot.
Hopefully, I'll be able to see some movies before next time.
Yeah. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to try and see Star Wars when I'm in France in a couple weeks.
Are you going? Is he going out?
I'm going to be there when the movie comes out.
Oh, it's going to be in French, right?
I don't know. You know,
maybe it'll be English with French subtitles.
So it's either see it then or wait a few days before I get home, and then I see it and I'm jet lagged and weird.
Oh,
which might be an interesting way to see the new Star Wars movie. I don't know, but it'll be fun.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for Safe. We'll be back next time with Night of the Hunter. Thanks very much, fellas.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.